Yo, what's going on, YouTube, and welcome back to Goal Line Hockey. It's your boy Kevin Forte, and today we're going to be going over special teams. That is the theme of today. We're going to be going over the best power plays, the best penalty kills, as well as the worst power plays and the worst penalty kills. And the teams that are in those categories, is there a translation between success on the power play and the penalty kill? Does that translate to wins and potential Stanley Cup playoff chances? So we're going to be going over that today. So we're going to start off with the power plays. Now, the power plays is interesting because, well, it's not that shocking who's at the top of this. Looking at the top 10, I'm a little bit surprised to see Boston at 10. This is a team coming into the year. There was some concern, would they be able to get that depth scoring, especially with, the return of Taylor Hall. We knew he was good, but could he keep that up? Jake DeBrusk kind of not panning out. Would that be a hindrance on this team? Charlie Coyle has always been is he good enough to be a top 6 center? Well, they've answered that, and they've done quite well to start the season. And I think the Bruins are one of the more underrated teams here to start this season, and we'll probably see them later this week. A big game against the Rangers here on Black Friday, which you guys are probably either just watching or just watched. Hope you guys had a great Thanksgiving. But I think this is interesting here at the top 5. So at 5 is the Anaheim Ducks. We know they just went on that crazy winning streak. Troy Terry absolutely tearing things apart. And that doesn't surprise me that the Ducks are at 5. Nashville at 3. Very interesting. They're at 28.6%. And then at 3 and number 2 and at number 4 are really interesting. So at number 4 is the Dallas Stars. The Dallas Stars are at 26.7%, just better than the Anaheim Ducks. And they find themselves in the top 5. Now, the Dallas Stars have been one of those teams. They are my Jekyll and Hyde team this year. They are either one of the best teams on the ice against certain opponents, or they're miserable and terrible and hard to watch. So, as long as they can get more consistent, the Dallas Stars could be a real force in that Central Division. And like I said, at number 2, another team in that Central Division. There's a bunch of Central Divisions there in the top 5 division teams. You have Dallas, Nashville, and St. Louis at 2, 3, and 4. They're all Central Division teams. I found that a little bit interesting. But St. Louis, they're interesting as well. All 3 of these teams are not really what we were expecting. I mean, in the preseason, if you told me Chicago, because you brought in Seth Jones on the back end, you brought in the return of Jonathan Toews, Kirby Dach, Patrick Kane, we know he could score on the power play. I would have expected them to be the best Central team in terms of power play this season. That has not been the case at all whatsoever. So, give credit where it's due. And obviously, the Edmonton Oilers, their power play is at a alarmingly good rate for anybody that do not take a penalty against the Oilers, because you're going to give up a goal. They are just under 40%, 39.6%. That is almost 10% better than the second place St. Louis Blues, who are at 28.8%. Actually, it is over 10% more. I'm not good at math, guys. But that is something to look at. The Oilers' power play really is a strong suit this season, and they're finally getting that depth scoring. Now let's look at the reversal effect. So who are the worst power play teams in the league? The least efficient power plays. Vancouver is at the top of the bottom list there. The best of the worst at 23, 16.2%. But then you get some teams here that are a little bit interesting. At number 30 is the New York Islanders. Obviously, as an Islander fan, you could say, all right, here comes the homer side. But the Islanders are at 30%. This is a team that prefaces on their defensive ability and penalty killing. And we know they've always lacked in terms of scoring on the power play and scoring in general. But they're never this bad on the penalty kill, especially in the Barry Trotz, Lou Lamoriello era. This is something we have not seen in a couple of years since Garth Snow was fired. So there is a little bit of what's going on there with the Islanders. So they're at number 30. Vegas at 31, behind the Islanders. Now, the Golden Knights have actually played well in their past, really last 10 games, last 2 weeks. but they are at 31 in this category, 11.4% on the power play. They are really bad. Now, again, you also have to remember earlier in the season, they obviously had a lot of guys leave this team due to injuries. They started the season without Alex Tuch. Early on in the season, Pacioretty and Mark Stone got hurt. They had a lot of guys out, and not to mention they just traded for Jack Eichel, who was going to help that power play. That's probably one of the big reasons they brought him in. But we aren't going to see Jack Eichel in here until the very earliest of 2022. So we still have some time to see him in there. So I don't know what the quick fix is there either. And at 32 is the Pittsburgh Penguins. The worst power play in the NHL is the Pittsburgh Penguins. Now, I think this is more to show you how much they rely on Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin on the power play. And Jake Guentzel is a nice compliment in that power play, but he can't be the focus. And this is not a shot against Jake Guentzel. He's a very good hockey player, but he does rely on those guys to help him out. You know, they are more worried about taking care of those guys on the power play, but when they're not on the ice, they key in on guys like Charlie Coyle and Jeff Carter and Jake Guentzel, more importantly. So he has not done well when taking on the best players of the other opponent. And that's, you know what, that's not necessarily a knock on Guentzel, but it just shows how much they miss Crosby and Malkin. Now, the good news is it seems like Crosby is going to be returning, which is huge for the Penguins, and having him back, I don't want to even say healthy because we just don't know. He's had a lot of tough things going on to start this season, and we're hoping Sid comes back because he wants to play in the Olympics. I mean, Crosby, of course Crosby wants to play in the Olympics. Malkin wants to play in the Olympics, so I would expect him to be back hopefully before the end of the year, but it may not be till after New Year's that we get to see Geno Malkin and number 71 back on the ice. So those things should definitely help out the Penguins. So out of the bottom three teams, I guess the most optimism is from the team in last, which is the Penguins, because their guys are injured. So this could get better as the season goes along. Maybe not going to be first, may not be the most prolific or the number one efficient power play by the end of the year, but I don't think it's going to be at 32 by the end of the year. There's no way. I don't believe it with Malkin and Crosby in this lineup. I just don't see it. Now, looking at the penalty kill. Now, this is talk about Jekyll and Hyde. This is very interesting. Usually you have teams when they're good on the power play, they're also good on the penalty kill. That's not the case for the Pittsburgh Penguins. The Pittsburgh Penguins, despite having the worst power play in the league, have the best penalty kill in the league. Interesting. Very interesting. The Penguins are at 89.6%, just slightly better than the Oilers, who have the best power play. They have the second best penalty kill as well. So for everybody, including myself, that's giving Ken Holland a lot of flack there in Edmonton, the Edmonton Oilers right now, it's not all the Connor McDavid-Draisaitl show. This is defensive hockey as well. And remember, this is without who was supposed to be their starter, Mike Smith. Really impressive stuff from the Oilers, 88.9%. Now this is even more shocking. To round out the top five, at 3 is the Toronto Maple Leafs. The Toronto Maple Leafs, a top 5 penalty killing team. Really nice stat there for the Leafs. We don't normally talk about them in that vein. They're a much more run and gun team. We saw that the other night against the Islanders. They can play that game as well. They've gotten a lot better with that. At number 4 is the Carolina Hurricanes. Despite all the big shakeup they had in between the pipes and defense this past summer, they seem like a very good team in that category. And the San Jose Sharks at exactly 88% round out the top 5 in terms of the most efficient penalty kills in the league. Now, another interesting thing here, I see the Chicago Blackhawks at 7, with all the problems they've had goal-scoring-wise. Pretty good penalty kill this year at 86%. Anaheim, Tampa, and Boston. Again, Boston is in the top 10 for both of these categories, penalty killing and power play. Now, getting to penalty kill, you're going to see some similar faces here in terms of the worst. The Los Angeles Kings are again at the bottom here in the bottom 10. The New York Rangers and the New Jersey Devils. The Ottawa Senators, the Montreal Canadiens, the Arizona Coyotes. And the worst penalty kill in the NHL. The Winnipeg Jets, 65.3%. That's 31st in the NHL. And the worst penalty kill in the league this year is the Vancouver Canucks at 62.3%. That is 3% worse than the Winnipeg Jets, who are the second in that category. And I talked about it in my Canucks video. Whether you guys have watched that or not, make sure to stay tuned for that if you haven't. The Vancouver Canucks have had a lot of issues this season, and it started with the defense because they were giving up goals early in the season. They were scoring goals, but they were giving up goals. So Travis Green took the approach of, well, we're going to have our forwards stay back a little bit more, stay a little bit more relaxed, and worry about keeping the puck out of the net. Well, the problem with that is they were still giving up pretty much the same amount of goals, and they weren't scoring goals. So they ended up hurting themselves even more by doing that. And not only do they have a team that's not scoring as prolifically as they should be, and it's just taken the confidence and sucked it out of guys like Pettersson and Horvat and Besser, you've also been giving up the same amount of goals. And that's what you end up having in Vancouver. So some little interesting stats here. It doesn't seem like there's a huge correlation between, special team success at this point. But give it a couple more weeks, and you're kind of seeing it kind of play out. I mean, so there are some outliers, like you look at the power plays. St. Louis has struggled. Colorado's had some of their struggles early on, but they seem to be turning a page. But everybody else is technically in a playoff spot. So like 6 or 7 of the 10 are in the playoffs. Penalty kill-wise, Pittsburgh not a playoff team. Edmonton, a playoff team. Toronto, a playoff team. Carolina, a playoff team. I believe Calgary's in the playoffs. Anaheim, Tampa, and Boston. So that's 7 of the 10 in terms of penalty kills. So you're pretty much looking at maybe 3, maybe 4 outliers in terms of not making the playoffs. But overall, it's easier to put it simply. If you're good on the penalty kills, it creates momentum in a game. Let's say you're losing a game 2-0. It's the second period. Not much is going on. You get a power play. Well, especially if you're at home or on the road. Doesn't matter. Let's say you score a goal. It'll quiet that fan base if you're on the road, and it'll get your fans energized if you score a power play goal at home. So there is something to be said about the momentum shift in scoring on the power play or the penalty kill, or dare I say, scoring a shorthanded goal. And that was kind of what we saw for the Maple Leafs in their game against the New York Islanders last week. The shorthanded goal gave them the momentum. It gave them the first goal of the game, shut down the Islanders fans, and they end up winning that game, getting a shutout. Who knows if that would have been the story? Had the Islanders scored on that power play, that may have been a completely different hockey game. And we've seen that obviously in other games. The Dallas Stars scoring back-to-back shorthanded goals last week. There are different scenarios where you could see not even shorthanded goals, but special teams playing an impact in the game overall. And that potentially being the difference in a game. And I think it does have a pretty strong correlation at this point. Not completely 100%, but it does have a strong correlation. You're always going to have 1 or 2, maybe even 3 outliers. But for the most part, that is something you could look at as a marker of success. So guys, let me know what you think in the comment section down below. What do you think of the Penguins' great penalty kill, but also terrible power play? I think it's a pretty fair assessment. It's really Crosby and Malkin not being there. They're just not prolific on the power play. And the Edmonton Oilers at the top of the pack, second best penalty kill and the best power play in the league by a large margin. Let me know what you guys think of those down below. Guys, as always, thank you so much for watching this video. Guys, it is Black Friday weekend. A lot of spending is going to be going on, but make sure to check out our Streamlabs shop in the description down below. We have some Goal Line Hockey merch, hats, beanies, sweatshirts, t-shirts, coffee mugs, backpacks, anything. We have all of it down in the link down below to help support the channel. And you know what? Maybe you're running low on funds. You already spent all your money for the holiday season. Guys, something that's free that could help me out. Give this video a big thumbs up. And if you are not already, make sure to subscribe as well. Guys, as always, again, I do appreciate it, and I really mean it. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you again next time.